Okay, so we are on the Kildee house, chapter 3. An event of considerable importance happened very shortly after Emma Lou visited Jerome. The spotted skunk family increased in number. Jerome and Papa were very much excited about it. Papa dashed about wildly, ducking up the chimney, under the bed, and then out of the house. He never went under the floor. Jerome got the idea he was banned from the nest for the time being. Jerome wrenched his shoulder, trying to get his head under the foundation far enough to see the new family. But the skunks were black in color, so he could not see them in the dim light under the house. For once, Jerome was sorry he was such a good stone worker. He had built the foundation strong and tight. There was only the small opening he had left for ventilation. Jerome considered removing a board from the floor. The trouble was, he did not know which board to take up. He crawled over the floor, putting his ear to every other board. Papa dashed about, jumping upon chairs, dancing a wild jig for a minute, then listening with Jerome. The way Papa was acting was what made Jerome worry. He was sure Mama was in dire need of help. He was certain Papa was trying to make him understand he ought to do something. It was not until he came to the third board out from the fireplace that he knew everything was all right. He could hear Mama chirring happily and small voices squeaking. Jerome sat up and grinned at Papa. He got out his pipe and filled it. When it was going good, he spoke to Papa, who was fidgeting on the edge of the fireplace. "Well," he said, "everything is just fine down there." Papa showed his teeth. He wrinkled his nose as a wisp of tobacco smoke floated around his head. Giving Jerome a disgusted look, he marched out of the cabin. Jerome was not sure why Papa was disgusted. Jerome guessed that there was a law laid down by Dame Nature which barred Papa from the nest at a time like this. He got to his feet and walked to the door. When he saw Papa stalking off towards the woods, he was sure he had guessed right. Papa wasn't welcome in the nest for a while. Later, Mama showed up. She was very proud and happy and very hungry. Papa had returned from the woods. Jerome guessed he had been ordered to stay under the floor to keep the babies warm while Mama got something to eat. He gave Mama a saucer of milk and a thick slice of Spam. If you don't know what Spam is, it's kind of ham in a can. There's a Spam museum in Minnesota, believe it or not, near Rochester, Minnesota. Mrs. Grouch was very much interested in Mama's family, but she didn't go poking about near the ventilator hole. Old Grouch sat in the sun and leered at Papa when he finally showed up. He seemed to be showing off. He had never cared for the babies while Mrs. Grouch got something to eat. It was clear he didn't think much of the way Papa was letting Mama push him around. Every once in a while he would burp lazily as he sat with his paws folded over his fat stomach, and then he would put on his sneer again. The arrival of the little skunks, who would soon be demanding meat, should have sent the mice and the pack rats on their way, but they did not go. The mother pack rat had gone to a lot of trouble gnawing a hole under the eave so that she could get down between the siding and the wallboard at a spot near the fireplace where the wall stayed warm. She had no intention of leaving a heated apartment. With any luck at all, she would soon have one whole section between the studding filled with things she had pilfered. Remember, pilfered means stole, or to steal. Her collection included a pair of Jerome's pliers, 3 spools of thread, 2 white and 1 black, his eye cup, a quarter, and 4 dimes, which Jerome had carelessly left on his stand. These were stored along with an assortment of pine cones, pine needles, cactus thorns, pretty rocks, and plain grass. There was a liberal supply of thorny bushes and spiny branches. How she managed to sleep comfortable on such a bed was a secret known only to a pack rat. And that's where the expression pack rat came from, right? People that keep everything. There's a picture of the pack rat with all the pack rat things. She had 3 babies in the nest, and she had driven her maid away as soon as the babies came. Papa had left her alone because it was easier to catch mice than to get at her. He was waiting for the young rats to get big enough to venture out into the open. But now that a heavy burden had been placed upon him, he began sniffing around and planning ways of raiding her nest. He spent hours under the oven near the hole she had gnawed. He always pretended to be asleep. Jerome had a feeling it would only be a matter of time before Papa and Mama dined upon young rat. In a way, Jerome was sorry, but he knew very well that if Papa didn't clean out the rat family, he'd have to do it himself. As the young rats got bigger, they joined their mother in thumping their feet on the wall. They were always most active from midnight until dawn, and they liked a section of the wall only a few feet from the head of Jerome's bed. Why a soft-footed rat should clump loudly like a man on stilts, Jerome could not guess. But clump they did, and very loudly. His faith in Papa was strong, and after a few nights he knew Papa was coming through. He kept track of the casualties among the rats by the lessening of the thumping sounds. Within a week after the arrival of Papa's children, the thumping had diminished to a solitary round of rappings. Jerome thought it sounded sad and lonesome. He was glad the sounds did not stop entirely. If the mother rat eluded Papa, there would be another family. Jerome was beginning to think Emma Lou had forgotten her promise to visit him again. He was sorry because he liked Emma Lou. She had given him a new slant on girls. Jerome had always thought of girls as sweet little things dressed in fluffy gowns with scrubbed pink faces and neat pigtails down their backs. Emma Lou did not fit this picture at all. Her hair was bright red and it was bobbed. She wore jeans rolled up to her knees, and her face usually had smudges or berry vine scratches on it. She had quite a few freckles, too. Now that Jerome was making it his job to study the folks around him, he was very much interested in Emma Lou. He decided he liked her better than he would have liked one of the girls he had always had in his mind. She had a big smile and a tilted nose that was very nice. Then Emma Lou showed up. The long rubber bands and the leather pouch of her beanie dangled from her hip pocket. She was carrying her hat in her hands. It was heaping full of blackberries. They weren't little wild berries, they were the big ones off the brush at home. She set the hat on the table. "Hello," she called to Jerome, who was laying a fire in the fireplace. "Hello. Fine morning." Jerome dumped a log into the fireplace and turned around. "Everything under control?" she asked. "That Donald Cabot been bothering you any?" When Jerome shook his head, she went over to the box in the corner and lifted one of the Grouch children from its nest. Mrs. Grouch hopped out of the box and sat up, eyeing Emma Lou anxiously. "Haven't seen a sign of Donald or his dog," Jerome said. Emma Lou grinned. There was a wicked flicker in her green eyes as she nodded her head. "Didn't think you would," she said, and let it go at that. Jerome finished laying the fire. He was glad Emma Lou had come. He felt like talking, and there was news. "What have you been doing?" he asked, just to be polite. He would save the news about Mom and Papa until just the right moment. "I went over to Santa Cruz and visited my aunt," Emma Lou said. She frowned darkly. "Had a rotten time. Aunt Tilly's always scandalized by blue jeans. Silly made me wear skirts all the time I was there." Jerome nodded. By this time he knew who Silly was. He clucked his tongue in sympathy. "Must have been pretty bad," he said. "It sure was," Emma Lou said. She had seated herself on the floor. She had the raccoon family in her lap. They were busily trying to pull the buttons off her shirt. She shook her head, then she grinned at Jerome. "It wasn't all bad. Uncle Will and I overhauled his pickup truck. I did the underneath stuff because Uncle Will has too much stomach." Mrs. Grouch, seeing that she had a babysitter, walked out into the sunshine. She headed down the slope at a fast trot. This was the first time she had had a chance to roam in the woods without her brood tagging her. Old Grouch roused himself enough to sit up, but he did not follow her. He yawned and lay down again. "She shouldn't be prowling in the woods in the daytime," Emma Lou said. "You're spoiling your raccoons. They should prowl after dark." "I don't try to make them do anything," Jerome said. "They don't belong to me." Emma Lou considered this for a long minute. It was a new idea. When her brothers tamed anything, it was their property. She had thought of the raccoons and the skunks as something Jerome owned. "That's the way it ought to be," she said at last. "I'll keep an eye on her littler ones until she comes back. These little nuts would wander off and get lost." "I don't think they'd get lost," Jerome said. "They're about big enough to take care of themselves. She's been taking them for long walks in the woods lately." "Where's the spotted skunks?" Emma Lou asked suddenly. "In the chimney?" Jerome grinned eagerly. "They have a family under the floor." He was tickled when she showed excitement over the news. "How many?" she asked. "Don't know. I tried to get a peek at them, but it's too dark under the floor. Sounds like quite a family." He chuckled. "Keeps the old man hunting to catch enough mice for Mama these days, and she sees to it that he does the hunting. Been good for my sleep, though." "Why?" she asked. "Pack rat's family been thumping inside the wall near my bed. It got so I couldn't get any sleep. But after Papa had to start really hunting, the noise slacked off." "Good thing," Emma Lou said. "Rats smell a place up." She put the little raccoon on the floor. "I'll keep an eye on them, but I just have to take a peek at the little skunks." She stood up and dusted her hands off. "How old are they?" "Over a week," Jerome said. He doubted she'd be able to get a peek at the skunk family. She nodded toward the berries. "I picked a few for dinner." "I'll make a shortcake," Jerome said. "Have a peek at the family if you can." Emma Lou turned toward the door. She paused to poke a finger into the ball of fur in the square of sun near the window. The ball of fur exploded into a raccoon. Old Grouch growled at her and arched his back. His neck fur swelled out around his face, and he looked very fierce. Emma Lou laughed.
He wants to talk to one of our parents.
Oh.
So if you want me and Hannah to come in here.
Okay. I'm going to have to pause and only be through half of chapter 3 because the fireplace guy needs to talk to me. So we will continue.